Hello, BookTube. Oh, oh, so creepy. I am once again trying to fight the nimbus of light that is trying to claim me for the world beyond. I'm continuing with my library tour, and we are slowly but surely encroaching on the end of the history section. You've been very patient. We've been just going through the history section. And we are now, we're going to try and do another whole shelf. I'm going to try and do this with less bloviating so that we get through the whole of the shelf in a fairly expeditional manner. I don't want to take this 40 minutes. 40 minutes for a video is ridiculous. So the first two books are really, I mean, they're works of history, but they're really about reading, and they are terrific. I recommend both of them. They're not cheap, and they're probably not easy to find, but they are wonderful, both of them. The first one was by Jonathan Rose. We've seen him before. He, a long time ago at the beginning of this library tour, he did a book called The Literary Churchill that was fantastic. And this is the intellectual life of the British working classes, which not only has Ringo Starr on the cover, but is really about reading. I mean, there are other things involved here, other aspects of intellectual life, but this is really about what the British working classes read. And it spills over from that subject into a million different places. It is fantastic, just fantastic. This author is great anyway, but this is, wouldn't be surprised. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope he proves me wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being his masterpiece. Just an amazing work. Ends up being mostly about books. And then this next one it's from Oxford. It's a huge thing. I don't remember when this came out, but it probably 10 years ago. And it's a little steeper. It's a lot more expensive, I'd be willing to bet, and probably a little bit harder to find, but also just wonderful for me in terms of I'm a big fan of books about books and books about reading and the history of reading. And this is by Philip Waller, and it's called Writers, Readers, and Reputations, Literary Life in Britain from 1870 to 1918. Big, huge thing that I just loved. I have so many passages in this that are underlined. And the author goes everywhere. Just goes everywhere. Studies every aspect of the subject. The authors hawking their own wares, advertisements, reviews, of course. My own bailiwick is covered in depth in here. Every aspect of the subject is just covered beautifully. What an amazing pair of books they are, really, for showing what people read and why they read. You know, almost 100 years ago. Just I recommend them, really. I really do, but they're a little bit. They're not exactly popular history, so you'd have to buckle down for that. Okay. This is a British hardcover of a book that I just loved. Grotesque, grim reading, but the kind of thing that pulls you right out of your own mind and plops you down in the mind of someone else, which is the great thing about reading, right? Even there's no stipulation in that contract that says that the experience has to be good. It just has to be amazing. Just has to, be unselving, as an old friend of mine used to put it. It has to unself you. And this is Victor Klemperer. This is part one of his diary series. This is I Shall Bear Witness, where he kept a diary all through the rise of the Nazis, all through their slow, incremental, day-by-day, crushing seizure of daily life, of daily power, of daily thought. More and more restrictions, and more prohibitions, and it just this takes you right up to right into the heart of the war, and it's just a relentless decade of Klemperer knowing people, knowing neighbors, knowing friends who all of a sudden had to choose between their own rights, their own safety, the safety of their own children or their own business, and their long-standing friendship. It's harrowing, just harrowing. And as Christopher Hitchens put it once, very aptly put it about these books, the worst part about them is that you know what's coming, and Klemperer doesn't. And so when Jews are suddenly told, you can't have pets anymore, you have to bring your pet to a liquidation center, you're not allowed to have pets anymore, and so on and so forth, all the way down the line, until finally, by the end, he's risking everything, his life, the life of anyone he cares about, just to keep the diary. And he still does it. And it's just an amazing document. Amazing. And I was glad. It had a vogue in American publishing as well. It did well. And people paid attention to it. They read it. And I had copies of those, of course. I had the hardcovers and then the paperbacks. Got rid of them, and then somewhere down the line found this British hardcover. I don't think I'll get rid of it. I think I'll keep it. I might like to find a British hardcover of the second volume. That's another one of the many things this library tour has convinced me to keep an eye out for, as if I need more books. Okay. All right. This is Greg Herkin's book, the Georgetown set, about the Alsop brothers, but also about, in the broader sense, the same world as the Georgetown Ladies Social Club that we saw a couple of videos ago. And this is largely about that world, the world of society hostesses, of Washington society hostesses. The Alsop brothers, in every effective way, they were Georgetown society hostesses. In every way that matters, they were. But this book is the counterpart to that other one, to the Georgetown Ladies Social Club, in every way, because this is thoroughgoing and balanced and incredibly intelligent, beautifully written, and just as solid as a rock. I was very happy I got a copy of this thing originally when it came out. When was this? 2014. I got a copy of this when it originally came out and got rid of it. Even though I love the subject, I got rid of it. Probably gave it to somebody. Probably somebody in Washington or in the area. And I found a copy again at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, and it was love at first sight. That's one of the things I've mentioned before. The Brattle gives you a chance at second chances, because you're looking at all these $1 books, and you'll suddenly see a book. I will suddenly see a book and think, not only did I love that book, but I have been missing it. I want a copy of that book, and the Brattle makes that easy to do, so I grabbed it. Okay, the same thing is true here. This is I had a UK trade paperback of this for a long time and read it until it fell apart, and so I was very happy to find a hardcover. This is Dominic Green's The Double Life of Dr. Lopez. Fantastic, nuts and bolts, detailed history of a particular scandal in the reign of Elizabeth I involving her doctor, who was executed on charges, many historians have said trumped up, imaginary charges, of being a traitor, of being a long-standing double agent. And Green's book is incredible. Just incredible. He's a fantastic author anyway, but this is just an incredible examination of the whole thing and the whole world around it. Just in terms of that shelf of Elizabethan political history that isn't just more vaporizing about Gloriana, that is actually getting down and to the nuts and bolts and telling a story. That shelf is comparatively small, and this belongs on it. So, okay, all right. This is brilliant. This next one is brilliant. I'm very glad. I mean, I may be fulminating in these videos that there are so many things that I wish I still had. There are still lacunae here. There are things that, for some unaccountable reason, usually out of just generosity, giving it away to people, there are books that I don't have that I really want. But I'm still pleased that a lot of the ones that are still here are books that I love, or books that I think are brilliant. And this is one of them. This is Robert Service, The End of the Cold War. Boy, oh boy. It's not a small book, and it's not an easy one either. But it is terrific, just terrific on this subject. It just sternly eloquent, but also just endlessly argument starting. I loved it, just loved it. And I some of you lived through that period with me. I lived through that period, day by day, paying close attention in the newspapers, morning and evening editions, to everything, to every story. I paid close attention. And it's fascinating to live long enough to see all of that gone over in many layers by many different successive classes of historians. That's just fascinating. And the same thing with this one. This is not anywhere near as magisterial as The End of the Cold War, but it's still a really, really good book. This is Jeffrey Engel's book, When the World Seemed New, specifically about George H.W. Bush and the end of the Cold War. And there you've got people clambering on the Berlin Wall. And you can see already, you can see immediately from the title of this book, the danger involved in it is if you're going to concentrate like this, you're going to need help from the participants, from those of the participants who are still alive, from their archives, from their estates. And that cooperation sometimes comes with a price tag, and it's often sugar-coated in whatnot, but And I didn't detect I shouldn't preface that way, because I didn't detect much of that in this book. This was very, very good, very smart. Just not quite so 30,000 feet as the end of the Cold War. Okay, all right, good. Well, there's not a dud in the bunch here. This is Alan Guelzo. This is Gettysburg, The Last Invasion. One of the few Civil War. You've all pointed it out to me. I've had a dozen different emails. People saying, it's a big history section. You're covering everything, but where are all the Civil War books? You should have hundreds of them. I agree with that. I don't disagree at all. I somehow or other, somewhere along the line, must have done some sort of purge and got rid of a lot of my Civil War books. I don't even have Stonewall in the Valley. That's a classic, and I don't have it. But I have this. This is a fantastic study of the days of the Battle of Gettysburg. Really concentrates on that, as so many books have. There's a whole series, a terrific series, where the author goes through the Battle of Gettysburg day by day with a separate book for each day. There's one about all the forces leading up to Gettysburg. There are military analyses of what went on and what didn't go on. Of course, there's a great novel, The Killer Angels, by Michael Shara. And I think this belongs with the best of them. I loved it. I know that there are Civil War wonks, Civil War specialists, who took a lot of issue with some of the things in there. And I've gone over their pieces, their articles in journals and historical venues and whatnot. And merit, sure. Meat on the bone, sure. Sufficient to damn a book of this brilliance? No. I've never found anything so far that was. But I think you're going to get that with any book. But this is the Gettysburg book that I kept, and you can see from this library tour I didn't keep many Civil War books. I don't know why that is. I will fix that. Like, for instance, I know that Bruce Catton. I'm forever praising Bruce Catton as a Civil War historian, and I know that I have him. He's just not out here. He's in the book room. He's in the little book room with all of the eternal keepers, which is kind of invidious, because I think all of these are eternal keepers too. But you know what I mean. And this is another big book on the subject that they all belong together. They are not. They are in 4 different places that I can see just by glancing, and that is Italian Renaissance books. And this is The Civilization of Europe in the Renaissance by John Hale. It is his big book. It is his masterpiece. It's a little bit stodgy. But oh god, the light, the light. It's a little bit stiff. Certainly stiffer than a lot of books that we've seen on this shelf so far. But the final word on a lot of what it discusses, at least for now, it's the fruit of this author's endless teaching and a really good, heavyweight, serious 1-volume introduction to the subject. Of the Renaissance, and not just in Italy, but the broader. Oh, okay. Oh, this is man. Okay, I'm glad I have this. A lovely produced thing, just beautiful. This is Doris Kearns Goodwin. This is the Bully Pulpit, and it is a beautiful thing. It has. They decided to go with this instead of premature blurbs. They decided to give it lovely end papers. There's a disastrous inauguration day. Snow 3 feet deep, winds howling, ice. Nobody had ever seen the like of it. People tried hard not to view it as an omen. And imagine having this is Taft's inauguration is what I'm talking about. Imagine having the spirit to just put that as an end paper. That is the candidate going to his inauguration. You will notice 2 men instead of 1 up on the driver's seat, and you might notice that there are figures jogging along beside. Those were to protect Taft. And this has tons of inset illustrations all throughout, inset black and white photos. And this is a story that started out with Doris Kearns. I believe it started out with Doris Kearns Goodwin wanting to tell the story of this contentious election. William Howard Taft, that's my guy right there, was Theodore Roosevelt's chosen successor. But only because Roosevelt had blurted out, more or less impulsively, that he wouldn't seek another term. And instead of simply ignoring that he had said that and seeking another term and just telling Taft to wait, he abided by it, and that was never going to sit well. He was never going to be comfortable with anyone else being in charge, much less a friend. So they split, Taft and Roosevelt. They had an epic split, an epic end of their friendship in public. And it was grist for the mill of every opinion writer in the country. It spawned a ton of books. It spawned a ton of editorial cartoons. And I think that Doris Kearns Goodwin probably originally thought that was a great story on its own to tell in a book. But as you can tell from the back, the story broadens to be about those journalists, to be about the people who were telling that story. And that makes it so much better. This is such a great book. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, so of course I'm going to say it's her best book. I don't know, actually now, in the middle of this library tour, I don't know if I have Team of Rivals. Imagine that, if I don't have Team of Rivals. I need to find the next dollar copy and get it. But I don't know that I do. I might not. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's keep. What are we doing for time? We're doing much better for time. Good, because we're closing on the end of this shelf. This is a great book. This next one is a great book. It's not particularly great history. It's got its tongue too firmly in cheek for that. But it is terrific reading, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not serious and professorial. So I shouldn't say it's not great history. It's just not that kind of history. This is by Nigel Hamilton, who I admit is an author I love. I don't think I've ever read a book by his that I didn't love. And this is American Caesars, The Lives of Presidents from Franklin Roosevelt to George W. Bush. And he treats it exactly like he was writing Suetonius, which is one of the many fun innovations of this book. When he introduces each chapter, he gives you a coin, the president's official coin, and gives you a classification. John F. Kennedy, for instance, is later deified, which is straight out of Suetonius. But that's not... Richard Nixon is later reviled. And what you get is just a series of terrific, aphoristic, incredibly readable biographies of these men, of these presidents. I go back to this book all the time. All the time I do. I have a couple of just general guides to the presidents, and there are a couple of really good ones online. Because if you're writing about a president, invariably you're going to forget which president they were in numerical order. You want to refer to them that way at least once in your review. You want to say the 31st president of the United States. I will sometimes forget their party affiliations. So I need, in other words, an encyclopedia block of information like that. There are tons of those online. But I have a few of these as well, a few books like this that get me going in the vim and spittle area of writing about presidents. That's always a great help. Oh, fantastic! Oh, I didn't think I had this in a finished copy. Fantastic! This is Richard Ben Cramer. Great work of political reporting. This is What It Takes: The Way to the White House. Big, thick thing. I've had this in so many. There was a red, white, and blue trade paperback once upon a time. I had that, and I read it until it fell apart. This is a rereadable book. It is terrific. All about the writing. It's the writing about, let me see here. In 1986, Richard Ben Cramer, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, embarked on a reportorial enterprise without parallel. He would explore the lives of the candidates who would run for president in 1988 and try to discover what convinced them that they could lead the United States of America. And he does. He goes through all of the contenders and just writes about all of their foibles. It's just amazing. Just amazing. The very first chapter of the book is called The Price of Being Poppy. And it's one of the most insightful short pieces about George H.W. Bush that I've ever read. And there have been no shortage of those. And it just goes on from there. The portrait of Ross Perot is withering. The portrait of Bob Dole is incredibly good, incredibly felt. This is just a classic. It's an American political writing classic. If you are interested in American political writing, you absolutely have to read this book. Let's see here. I can't imagine that'll be the last of its kind either. Oh, okay, great. All right. This is a 2017 trade paperback reprint of Johannes Fried's, the English language translation of Johannes Fried's The Middle Ages. Big, comprehensive study of the Middle Ages from, many different angles. I don't know that I'm blurbed on this, probably not, but I loved it, just loved it. And it is one of my very few volumes on the subject, because I just go back to this one over and over again. I got rid of the hardcover. I had the hardcover forever and ever. I think I gave it to somebody. And then I got the trade paperback from, this is the Belknap Press? Yes, the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press. And it's a keeper for your library, so I was glad that I got it again. Okay, all right. This next one, oh God, look at all the bookmarks. Oh my. All right, this next one is another one of those must-have political books, American political books. I think you need The Power Game by Hendrick Smith, which we've seen already. You certainly need What It Takes by Richard Ben Cramer, but I think you need this as well, The Wise Men. This is by Walter Isaacson and Evan Thomas, and it's the study of 6 friends slash enemies slash frenemies slash wise old men who were gray eminences behind a lot of American policy for a long time. And it's beautifully done. I myself think that some of the portraits are better than others. I think that's probably unavoidable in a book this size. It's a huge thing. But it's an indispensable look at the way politics was done by the people who did it, and the biographical approach just makes it all the better. This and What It Takes and The Best and the Brightest. These are indispensable volumes. You have to read them if you want to know about American political writing, at least nonfiction. you have to read All the King's Men and The Last Hurrah and The Gay Place if you're reading, fiction. But you have to read these things if you're reading nonfiction. And that is it. 21 minutes. Not bad. Better than 40 minutes. That is our next library tour. So we're going to take a break from library touring. I know that probably all of you would probably be happy if we didn't do that, but nevertheless, we're going to take a break from library touring until Monday. And then on Monday, it looks like if we can do this in 20 minutes, then we can do the next one in 20 minutes. And that would mean we'll finish the history section on Monday. And then, unless you say otherwise, unless you say that you're bored, we will just round the corner and move on to the little book room. And this will be a document. It's like Jason Harrigan said, when he's doing a library tour as well. I'm doing these library tours. All four of the great brontosauruses of BookTube are doing library tours at the same time. And he did a recent library tour when he said, you don't have to watch these things from front to back right now. The point is they'll all be there. Once the video's up, it's there. And that's true for us as well as for you. I will always have this library tour. I will always have this visual imprint of what my library looked like in late 2019. Because we might be able to finish this. If we round the corner in the beginning of October, we might be able to finish this whole library tour in 2019. That would be amazing. So we're going to wrap it up for now. That is the penultimate library tour shelf for history. So we'll reconvene on Monday and finish up the history section then. And maybe the lighting will be more cooperative then. So I will see you soon. I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.